Oh, let's see. Has it? Yes. Okay. Hey guys. It's my first live in bloody ages, and well, finally I have a good webcam in comparison to the last time I did a live, which was, God, when was the last time I did a live? Maybe a year or two ago now. Channel was very different when I did. It may have been 2 years ago now. I'm just gonna put the announcement out that I am live. I can see some people are joining me now. Of course, guys, as you can tell from the title, I am here to talk about the Percy Jackson live action. Oh my freaking God. Gods, really. I'm kind of still in shock a little bit that there is, hey guys, hey. Go let people know that I am live if you are able to, for those who are here now. Yeah, seriously, it is wild that Percy Jackson is literally getting a new live action adaptation. It's just, I seriously, I can't believe it. There are so many things to expect for this series, but then also things that you kind of don't want to get your hopes high about, which is, I know, pessimistic, but we have been burnt before. I say we. I wasn't actually part of the fandom when the trauma of the films came out. I think a few people know, just if you guys listen to my podcast, The Best Damn Camp, that I actually found the books after seeing the film like randomly on Film 4 here in the UK. I was like, oh, it's an okay film. And then seeing they were based on a book, and then from then on, Percy Jackson mad. Hence this channel. But basically, this live is me wanting to do a talk, react to, see, hey, AC Magic, talk to you guys, see if anyone here is interested or excited about the live action. Maybe do a few predictions about what we could possibly see. Do this video as guys, come on, I'm clearly the right choice to join the writing cast for Percy Jackson live action. I have so many plans. Like I put on my TikTok, which I do have now. I haven't talked about it yet on my channel because I've recorded a lot of videos very far in advance when I didn't have TikTok then. But if you guys want to check me out on TikTok, it is at a dose of Fran. Is it? Yes, it is. Fran for writer, yeah. And there I've started talking about things that I'm kind of interested in terms of actually writing for the show if I could. Like I've currently got like 15 pages of script that I started writing last night, and I probably shouldn't have because I was up until like 1 a.m. writing. But the thing that I think I'm most excited for in terms of the live action, yeah, literally the excitement is insane. I've just realized I've started a live and I don't actually have my laptop plugged in, so I will have to plug it into charge soon. I think the thing that I'm most excited for in terms of this live action is just, firstly, the new talent that I think is going to come from this. In terms of what we've seen Disney do with adaptations in the past, like the Chronicles of Narnia, those actors, as far as I'm aware, were like almost completely unknown. I think they'd had like small acting parts before Narnia, but other than that, they were completely unknown. They were the correct ages for the characters, or at least for the characters they were doing in that film, because they'd aged them up slightly for the Chronicles of Narnia. And I think the thing with Percy Jackson is that you can basically keep actors around, if not the exact same age as the characters, maybe a little bit younger, so they don't age up too much in terms of when they're going through the seasons. But it's going to be predominantly new talent, and Disney is well known for finding new young talent, which I think is important. I've just gotten, thank you, Yip, for mentioning me on your story to get the word out about my live. I appreciate that. It's going to be interesting to see what new talent comes from Disney in terms of young actors, and just from this fandom as a whole. Like literally my timeline on Twitter and Instagram have been like overtaken by Percy Jackson fans, which is incredible that so many people have like come from the ashes of Percy Jackson fandom. We've still been strong. Like I wouldn't be able to run this channel with the level of interest in the Percy Jackson videos that I do if the fandom wasn't interested in Percy Jackson content even now. But this just seems to kind of really spurred people on a lot more. And I think it's partly due to the video that Rick and Becky, it was Becky, wasn't it? I feel like it felt bad that I've forgotten her name. I think it is Becky, who is his wife, I think. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I think the thing with Rick and that video is that he just looks so excited and happy, which, considering what happened with the previous films and the emails that we've seen, and I'll link to the emails that he did release, not naming any names in the email because he's that guy. He doesn't tell on people. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I've got, actually, I don't think I've ever shown people the stuff on my wall before. I know I'm going off topic, but I've got, most of these are literally actually printed offline of like fantastic artwork. So we've got various artwork here. Who's basically like the go-to artist for Percy Jackson. We've got some stuff from TeePublic at the top here for Legend of Korra. All these art posters for the different bending scrolls and stuff like that. Yeah. It's I love it all so much. Around to the side, we do have like a bunch of like K-pop stuff here, and on this side as well, and a few. I think we've got, this was Percy Jackson animation. Oh, hold on, am I pointing correctly? There we go. Percy Jackson animation art there. I'm actually involved with PGO Animation, which is a YouTube channel where we're basically making an animated version of the Percy Jackson series. And they're all thrilled and excited about the fact that this is now being made live action. I don't know if we're still going to continue on with the project. I assume we will because it's all for fun, really. But I know loads of people are really excited about it, and they're all lovely guys. I don't know if anyone from PGO Animation is here, but you guys are awesome, and literally the dedication that people have had to this project is incredible. To get back to the Percy Jackson live action, though, so the reason why I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of joining the writing team is just because, firstly, I adore Percy Jackson. Oh my god, okay. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was on my story yesterday. I got too hyperactive about the live action that I accidentally gave myself a bit of a temperature and a little bit of a fever. So I'm going to try and cool myself down a little bit. So I apologize if I keep drinking every so often during this live. But I'm prone to overheating a lot. But the reason why I'm really interested in this is not only because I love Percy Jackson, but there's just, oh, yeah. Seriously, PGO Animation are awesome. 100% subscribe. But there's only one episode out for PGO Animation yet for the first chapter, basically. I will stay hydrated. Don't worry. I promise to stay hydrated. But there is more in the works. And there's a few other things that they've done as well. And there's like team meetings on it and stuff. It's very cool. For the Percy Jackson live action, I think the thing that's just going to be the most interesting is just how they're going to go about it. The thing that I've had for like the script that I've basically written, because I'm that person, is this idea that considering how the books start sounding like Percy is reciting a story, the look, I never wanted to be a half-blood, if anything you're reading sounds familiar, close it, run away now, all that sort of stuff. It sounds like someone of experience, someone who is writing their story, someone in the sort of in the future, so to speak, writing about their past. So I just have this idea of Percy literally as an adult, maybe 16, after all the events of the 5 books. We start the episode with him, his voiceover, him sat on a bench somewhere at camp, just writing in this book. And we just hear in a voiceover, look, I never wanted to be a half-blood. And it just goes into the story in that way. And it's just, I just like this idea of like the voiceover that we do have is like an older Percy when we do have a few voiceovers here and there. Kind of like if anyone here has seen the Maleficent live action film, where we hear the voiceover at the start of like Once Upon a Time and how it ends with her saying, because I was that Sleeping Beauty. And it turns out that it was Aurora as an older woman retelling the story and the true story of Maleficent. I just kind of like the idea of older Percy telling the story, telling his life to maybe be like sort of hold on, do I have them here? I think so. Yeah, so Heroes of Olympus, the Demigod Diaries, which is a really, really cool book if no one has read it. It's all about these campers telling sort of stories either during their time at camp or background information. For my podcast, The Best Damn Camp I Read, I'm doing it all in timeline order in terms of the story. Luke Castellan's diary is technically the first. Book one starts with that. Yeah, book one starts with the whole look, I never wanted to be a half-blood and all that sort of stuff. Luke Castellan has his own diary. I think it is in this one actually that his story is in. Yeah. This is the one that has Luke Castellan's diary in. And in terms of the timeline, his story technically comes first, which in a sense kind of builds up how he became the villain that we know him to be in the series. And I just think it's just really interesting, this idea. I don't know where I was going with that, actually. Hold on. Where was I going with that? The diary aspect. And I just think it'd be really interesting just as a whole to have this sense of idea of like literally an actual diary, because it ties into Luke's character a little bit. Like he is writing this diary to sort of document the things that lead to him resenting the gods more than anything. And to have Percy do that, but put more of a positive spin on it in a sense, positive in quotes, because obviously not everything that happens in the books is positive. That's kind of the whole point of the books, really, is that while things are do you think the movie sucks? That I don't. It's not that it sucks. It's just I think the film itself didn't try. And that's the thing for me, is that the whole film. I did a review recently on hearing the voice of older Percy, maybe adding some scenes where Annabeth is also. Yes, actually, hold on. I will get to that in a second because I have a big thing about that. Just to the movie sucked as adaptations. I think the thing is that they also kind of they weren't great as films themselves because they relied so heavily on cliches and tropes. In the recent episode of The Best Damn Camp, me and my friend Taylor Piercy French, the musician for it, we basically talk about how there are so many things that the film does that's just, it lets the whole story of Percy Jackson down. Annabeth is reduced to just a love interest. She has no personality. She has no character growth. She has no development. Percy, our main character, has no character development. He has no purpose other than being sort of a moody teenager, which is unfortunate because he has such depth in the stories. And then Grover is just basically a creepy sex fiend, is what I often classify his character in that film, is that he doesn't have a purpose himself. All he is there is to basically kind of make sex jokes, which, considering the books are aimed at 12-year-olds, and 12-year-olds are probably going to go see that film when it originally came out, not a good way to go, movie. But to go on to what Elizabeth Cupid McLean just said in the live stream, yeah, it's definitely an insult to Annabeth, the film, and basically all the characters, really. The film kind of insulted them all because it just did them all such a disservice. In terms of the Annabeth story element for what I'm thinking of for the series, there was a conversation that I had with someone recently on Instagram today, where basically what I kind of want is the diary of Luke Castellan to be not spoon-fed, but to be fed into the story at certain points so we can understand Luke as a villain more. I think the unfortunate thing with Luke's character is that we understand his motivation, but we don't understand him that much, or at least for me, I felt like I didn't. He's an interesting villain. His reasons for what he's doing are interesting and they have depth to it and it makes sense. But he himself, I just feel, could have been so much more interesting. And the Diary of Luke Castellan really changed my opinion of him as a villain, which is why I kind of want scenes to do with that story of his fed in throughout the series. Like when Luke is giving his speech to Percy at the end of the book with the scorpion, when he's talking about what happened to Talia, when he's talking about what the gods have done, maybe even a few flashes of his story. We're seeing it from his perspective now. Percy is hearing these things, but we are seeing everything through Luke's eyes. So we're getting these scenes of what happened, maybe not necessarily what happened to his mother, just because obviously that's important later on, but those scenes with Talia, him seeing Talia be killed, him and Talia trapped in the house, these monsters coming after them, us seeing Luke as a young boy and realizing the horror that happened to him, even seeing when he went on his quest and how he got that scar. So we can feel his anger and frustration at what happened to him and what drove him to what he is doing now. And in turn, I think there are certain points in Sea of Monsters where when we're with Annabeth and she's talking about like her fatal flaw and stuff like that, then we get these feeds of when she first met Luke and Talia, and we see the dagger. Now, as for, I don't want to spoil too much, because I think Lucifer Clips, I know you haven't read all the books yet. I know you've spoiled yourself for a few things, but the dagger is a really important part to both Annabeth and Luke. It is significant to pretty much the ending for The Last Olympian. And I think what would be really good to have in the series is the dagger be of real significance throughout, that we focus on it on certain points to kind of hint as to what is to come. So after the siren moment in Sea of Monsters, Annabeth confides in Percy, and we see her memories of when she first met Luke, when Luke first gave her the dagger. We see them growing up together, seeing her in the Cyclops house and all these things, seeing the young Annabeth and that connection and relationship to Luke through her eyes, so we can understand her. Because I know that's something the fandom has always picked up on, is that no one could really understand why Annabeth was nearly always in Luke's corner. But to show something like that through Annabeth's eyes, through those sort of flashbacks of a young, basically baby Annabeth, I think would have us sympathize with her a lot more, and her struggles of seeing this kid, well, not kid, basically have both her father, brother figure and her protector as a child. And the reason why she wants to protect him is because he was the first person to protect and stand up for her. So to see those in her memories in the series will not only make her sympathetic, will make us understand Luke a little bit more as well, which is always important, is to understand the villain at a deeper level. And again, don't want to spoil Last Olympian, because I know some people in the chat haven't gotten to that book yet. But with what happens with Luke, I think seeing this more human side of him. Wait, did they never really understand what I thought? I think people understood why, but they didn't really understand it at the same time, if that makes sense. Like I did a video on my channel a little while ago about why does everyone hate Annabeth, and that kind of ties into that. So many people think that, hold on, I need to plug in my laptop because it is about to die. And I'll get back to it, I promise. So the why does everyone hate Annabeth video, well, I talk about these things that people bring up, like her jealousy, her protectiveness of Luke. And lots of people, they understand again why she is like that, but not at the deep level, like what Elizabeth just said in the chat. We understand it, but not at the level that I think we could in the series. And again, it is because the books themselves are obviously all from Percy's perspective. He himself is kind of jaded towards Luke. So everything Annabeth is saying, we are seeing through that jaded lens of his jealousy of Luke, his opinions of Luke feeding through and colouring his image of what Annabeth is saying. So to show Annabeth's opinion and view of Luke through her eyes in the Sea of Monsters, for example, I think will both humanize her a little bit more, because again, she's a 13-year-old girl who ran away from home at 6-7 years old, went back multiple times and kept coming back to Camp Half-Blood because she kept feeling rejected by her mortal family. Luke was the only constant in her life. And I know I said this all in the Annabeth video, but Luke was the constant in her life. And she's going to feel this connection to him. And we just don't understand that because it's from Percy's point of view, which I think is why it would be good to get those moments of Luke's development and humanity shown through Luke's eyes to us, the audience. Those moments with Annabeth and seeing those things through her eyes for us, the audience. And maybe even having that back and forth of us seeing Annabeth's side, but when we go back to Percy's point of view, getting his frustration of what she is saying as well. So we're conflicted also, because I think the whole thing is that Percy himself is conflicted because what Annabeth says doesn't match with what he's seeing with Luke. But he can tell that there is something personal there, but he is conflicted by what he sees and what he feels. But he also cares about what Annabeth feels and what Annabeth says. So the confliction, I think, would be really good to show in that visual form of these changes in point of view. I know I'm getting really deep into this, but I think this is the thing. And I don't know, I think showing these different perspectives is important for this series. I know obviously the books themselves are all about being from Percy's point of view, but that's what gives us that one-sided thing. And I think that's what was good about the Harry Potter adaptations. And just to kind of go to the Harry Potter adaptations, is that we did see other characters' points of view. From Tash Shepherd in the chat, seeing apart from things like, say, the Demigod Files might help too, just because reading Luke's story really helped me sympathize with him. Exactly. That was the exact same for me. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Luke as a villain or even as a character the first couple of times I read the books, because I didn't even know there's a Luke Castellan diary in this book. But after I read it, I understood him so much more because we were seeing something about from his perspective. So you understand him so much more, and it's fascinating, which is why when Rick also did that announcement, I can't remember when it was. I think it was in relation to the Tower of Nero, that he's considering doing like one-shot stories for characters. I think it will help humanize a lot of the characters that we don't really get perspectives from. Like, I know loads of people hate this character, but in terms of Heroes of Olympus, I would really be interested in getting a short story or a short diary from, oh God, what is his name? Oh no, I've forgotten his name already. You guys know who I mean, don't you? It begins with a C. He kills teddy bears. What is his name? I can't remember it. But basically, like, I would like something to humanize him a little bit more. I think that's the thing with Octavian. Where did I get C from? Octavian. Thank you, guys. Sorry, me saying it begins with a C did not help because that was wrong. But I think that's just the thing that the characters, and predominantly the villains in Rick's work, they are so fascinating. But because we are only really getting it from certain characters' point of view, we don't get as much depth as I think we could with some of them. Like, Luke's whole motivation is one of the most fascinating things about villains, because he has something personal that drives him. But because we are all getting it from, I would also be interested in viewing Nico's point of view and seeing his, that's why I kind of want these point of view changes in this series, because I think it'd really work. And okay, this just popped into my head because I'm talking about point of view. I want a Sally Jackson backstory, or at least, when they're on the beach before the whole Camp Half-Blood thing, and she's talking about Poseidon, who obviously at the time we don't know is Poseidon, but she's talking about Percy's dad. What I kind of want is us to see her story, not to see Poseidon's face, but to see this shadowed figure of the man that she loved, the man who gave her the greatest joy in her life, which is Percy, and then left because he had to. And just kind of see this memory and see this melancholy in her face and her actions and her body language of her just retelling this story of how she met him and how he came out of the surf and how it was a whirlwind summer romance and all these sort of things. I just think it'd be so lovely to see that and to get more of Sally, because as we all know, Queen Sally is the greatest. And I've already got a fan cast for her, which I'm not going to announce yet because hopefully I will be having a joint podcast episode next week or maybe the week after with a fantastic Percy Jackson YouTuber who, again, I'm not going to announce just in case it doesn't go well, where we're going to be talking about fan casts. And I've got a good one, I think, for Sally Jackson. So hashtag Sally Jackson is the best, 100%. So I've just realized so many people have talked in the chat and I haven't read or responded. From Tash Shepherd, I don't think it was just jealousy of Luke. I think in a way Luke was the same sort of figure for Percy that he was for Annabeth. He was the first person who accepted Percy at camp. He took him in, and then he realizes Annabeth, this chick that's cool, cute, and out of his league in his view, to like this hot buff dude who was the leader, this brother figure, perfect, and then the betrayal mixed in. That is a good point. And I think that's the thing about Percy, is that Percy is complicated. And that's what I really like about him, is that he is a complicated character. He's not a one-note character. He's not all about, I'm going to be the savior, I am going to be the hero. He's more of he's like the reluctant hero who is also not reluctant because he wants to help his friends, because he wants to do these things. I don't know if this would be cool, but I would want to see more backstory. For example, like you said, Sally, but also smaller demigods like Ethan Nakamura. I'm guessing you mean Ethan Nakamura. I just added the last name in, but which I think maybe cool and also offers a new view. I totally agree. I think there are some characters as well who play some really significant roles in later seasons and later books. Not technically, they are books. What I'm talking about. I nearly said Michael. Sorry, that's my dyslexia there. I'm hoping that I'm saying this. Oh no, I don't want to say names because I'm going to say them really badly. So we've just been talking about these ideas that I have for the Percy Jackson live action series and what if I could be on the writing team. Rick, Disney Plus, hire me, please. And basically, it's more about just point of views. I think this is the main thing that I have for what I want to write, and that is different perspectives and different points of view, just to add depth to the other characters. Like, all of our characters have such amazing depth, but I think there could be more to them, I feel. And that's just one of them. And I don't know, there are so many other characters, like Ethan that was mentioned. I think Ethan is an interesting character because it feels like Ethan doesn't really do much other than kind of be a foil to certain plans, which I think is unfortunate because he could be such an interesting character considering who his godly parent is and what he represents in terms of demigods. So to kind of get a little bit more for his character, I think would be really, really good. Not necessarily a backstory for him, because I think too many backstories will just really clog down the story, but just something more for him, something that connects him to maybe even to Camp Half-Blood or maybe even having him in the earlier seasons and just seeing him around the camp. And even, I'm trying to give you an example. Okay, the only example I can think of isn't a particularly nice one, but it's yeah, that's the thing. I think the only thing is, in terms of him as a character, is that it would be cool to see, like what we get with Chris's character, is that we know of him in the books, like his name's popped up here and there, but we don't find out what actually happened to him or the fact that he sort of turned until much later, but we know his name. For Ethan, I don't want to know his name at all in the series until we meet him. But for the actor of Ethan, I think it'd be cool if he was casted early on just to be seen in the background. Yeah, no, I don't think they will screw up the series. I know that I'm being optimistic in this sense, but because Rick is involved and that he looks so excited, I doubt that they will. But for Ethan, just to go back to that, I think it'd be good to have that actor casted early on, to have him be seen in the background and build up sort of the visual sense of his resentment. And to go to the example that I was going to bring up, and again, it's not a particularly nice example as it's relating to an advert to do with school shootings. And it was this video about, we were focusing on the love story, not realizing that someone was being radicalized or brought up to this idea of starting a school shooting because we were so focused on the other thing. It's not the best example, and I apologize for that not being the best example, but that idea of seeing someone, and even having that for Luke as well, just seeing things in the background, even in the background shots of see, that's the thing, we don't actually sorry, just to note what Simon said, I'm not sure how they put him in the background though. Was he at the camp before? That's the thing, we don't actually know anything about what happened with Ethan. We don't know if he was at the camp before. We don't know where he was before, which I think is why I think it'd be interesting to have him at the camp, even if it's in a later season, like the season before we're meant to meet him in the book that he's meant to come into. Just to have him kind of be there, slowly being turned to the other side, and see this visual of him becoming jaded. And I think that would work for Luke's character as well. Like, just having these visuals of Luke in the background, just getting frustrated over something or other, just even just daily life in the camp, of him just kind of visually appearing to kind of get more and more weighed down by what's going on around him. Because that can be something that can be just shown through body language, and it's something that's incredibly subtle, but it's those things that like YouTubers like myself and other ones like Hello Future Me and I can't think of any others right now who pick up these small things in the backgrounds of films and TV series and stuff, of small moments that you don't realize at the time have significance until they do. So having this moment of just Luke practicing sword fighting, and kind of like what we have at the end of the first book, where Percy comes into him literally like beating the hell out of this dummy, but having it as kind of like an earlier moment as well, not to the same extent as what we see him at the end, but just seeing him at those points of frustration initially to build up to that final explosion, I think would be incredibly fascinating to see. And to have that for other characters, so maybe even seeing him, oh no, because there are people in here who haven't read the last books, the person who is the spy in the end, having Luke interacting with them in the background again to build up this connection of, okay, this person had a connection. We don't necessarily know who they are, know what's going on, but even a small quick moment of just a small conversation in the background, out of focus but slightly in focus, just to build up that hint. But it's so subtle that you would miss it if you weren't paying attention. It's those small story moments that I think are the most interesting. And I think that's what will build up the intensity for the story in this case. Because the whole thing was the different mysteries about the Percy Jackson series. There are so many mysteries that carry on from the first book until the last, until they're all solved. And to have those hinted at from the very beginning, just slightly, will not only engage the audience, not only will have people guessing, will not only have me, YouTubers like me, going mental online, like, oh my God, this thing, this theory, this connection to that, blah, 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 blah. Because you're darn right, I'm going to be doing that. And please stick around and tell your friends I'm going to be doing that, because I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers by this summer. Just saying. But but it'd be so fascinating. And the amount of character depth that you can do with these background moments, like the Clarice and who she has that bond with. Again, I don't want to spoil because I know there are people in this chat who haven't read all the books yet. And even things hinting to stuff for Heroes of Olympus as well would be incredibly cool. Just small little things like going where's the wildlife school again? It's in the desert somewhere. Maybe just having a sign for the school or having a sign to that area of the country just in the background again, because I love background stuff. Apparently that's my thing now. This would obviously, oh sorry, I've just realized I've just been talking, I haven't been paying attention to the chat at all. I apologize. I'll just go through what people have been saying. Oh, Hestia, yes. Oh my god, Hestia needs to feature so much more in this series. Just small little fragments of seeing the young girl figure by the fire just popping up every so often. It'd be really cool. True, it'll make a huge impact in the end. Exactly. What would be cool is in one of the scenes, Percy doing something and you see Nico talking with Hestia. Yes. Yes. They would obviously have to be the same age around of the first book, but in the next seasons, would we have to wait for the actors to grow up, or will they change the actors? That is a good point. So I think it'd probably run in the same way that the Harry Potter films did, in that they just kind of age with the films. I know in the end, like, most of the actors were actually in their 20s when they're meant to be like 17, 18, just because of how the films ran. So that's why I kind of think maybe they should get actors a year or two younger. So maybe like at like 11, 12. No, it's still, I think it would still be fine actually, like 11, 12, 13, depending. I think with girls, because we age a little bit differently and like in puberty and stuff like that, you can technically get a female actress of like 12, 13 and they can still look around the age that they need to, whereas with boys that you've got the whole voice breaking sort of element. So I don't know. The other points, we could see many of the nature spirits and stuff in the background. Yes, adds the whole thing of like what they did in Chronicles of Narnia, where we see all these different nature spirits and all these different things. And that is something that I want to bring up on. We need CGI, obviously, in certain points, but like what they did with Narnia, I would love for them to actually make the monster costumes, like the Minotaur that they have in the Chronicles of Narnia. That visual would be so much more terrifying than if it was CGI, because you would be scared, because it looks like a real thing, which is what we need. Whereas CGI, you can usually tell when it's CGI, and also then in future, it just ends up looking dated. Whereas Narnia, all of the visuals and the actual handmade creations of the creatures, they still look real even now, which is amazing. Same with Jurassic Park. Like, the dinosaurs were robotics. They weren't all CGI except for that one big moment. But all the other times they were robotics, which I think it works so much better than doing CGI. But that's just me. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Those hints and Easter eggs are very important. Exactly. Yes, it's kind of how the books are, so it's perfect, really, just because Percy is a summer only ready the whole time. Yeah, exactly. I feel like it makes sense in terms of the actors. They just kind of age with the series, just from how the show works. Because they're always a year older, and I don't know where I was going with that. But I think that's just the thing about this series. It's just there's so much that you can do with it. But there's so many ideas. They could even include the novellas. Exactly, yeah. Which is kind of what I was talking in terms of points of view, is that we can technically have the Diary of Luke Castellan fed into the story. We can technically have some of the side stories not necessarily shown, because I feel like you just won't have enough time unless you want to put in filler episodes, which, with it being live action, filler episodes don't really work as well. Some of the monsters had weird descriptions as well, such as the Minotaur wearing fruit of the loom. Yeah, see, that's why I think it would work better for them to be like actual made costumes for the creatures, because you can really get the visuals of what they look like in the books, or at least close to what they look like in the books. Which again it is important for them to kind of have that fantasy feel, which is why like Narnia is still one of the most loved film series, is because it just feels real. when you look at everything in it. They're not the best, obviously, adaptations, but they're still brilliant adaptations either way because of the different feel that they give to the series. Did you like Tyson's Sea of Monsters movie? How do you think they will change Tyson's design? That is a good point. So I didn't like Tyson in the Sea of Monsters movie. I don't like the Sea of Monsters movie as a whole because they basically like try to shove 4 books into one film. And then Tyson, I just felt like they didn't understand what his character was meant to be, which is unfortunate because Tyson is he is the lovable little brother who needs support from his big brother with Percy. But the film just made him out to be just another comic relief. Considering Grover, they already made a comic relief. They just added in another one. And it just felt off. But in terms of the visuals, I think Tyson would probably have to be CG, if anything, just because I think that'd be easy. But I don't really know. The mist element can play a lot better. Not what they did with the film, where it's like a spray, because that's weird. But they can have the whole thing of like us seeing from Percy's point of view, but just constantly just seeing him with the 2 eyes because Percy is struggling to be able to see through that element of the mist. So I think that could work where we have a few elements of CG, but just not too much. And just have that. Well, we're going to have the mist explanation in the first and second book because we get them quite frequently throughout the series. This explanation. I know the spraying the mist thing. It just made no sense. It's just I think how it can be done in the series is just explaining how the mist works and explaining, as we get in the book, the fact that just Percy hasn't really been trained to be able to see through the mist yet himself, and that's why we keep seeing Tyson with 2 eyes, or even kind of put like a slight blur effect so we kind of can't see it that well. I don't know, but it's something that you can kind of work through in terms of using what the mist is actually used for in the series itself by having it through Percy's perspective and just seeing the 2 eyes. I don't know. Something like that I think can just work quite easily. Sorry, I keep getting notification, guys. I apologize. But there are different things that I think can work in terms of the foreshadowing that we do get, the character development. Hints to Heroes of Olympus, I think, will be an interesting thing to get in. We may not necessarily get Heroes of Olympus. It depends how well Percy Jackson does in terms of, bringing in a profit. Because again, like that, this is the whole thing. This is something that I learned recently from a screenwriter that I had a meeting with. That basically, if it doesn't make money, the whole thing is that if it's got to make money, it's got to make a profit. It's got to bring a turnover. You've got to make revenue from it, no matter what. If Percy Jackson doesn't bring as much revenue into the amount of money that will be put into it for the actual production, it's possible that Heroes of Olympus may not get made because Heroes of Olympus obviously has a lot more with it. We've got people flying. We've got a giant dragon robot. We've got people who can put flames in their hands. Like, that will be so much more of a budget. So it'll be all depending on whether or not Percy Jackson itself turns over a substantial profit for Disney as to whether or not Heroes of Olympus will get made because of the amount of special effects budget that will have to go to Heroes of Olympus. I like to see Tyson's proper personality. In the film, they had him smart at times, but then he went completely thick when he was more uninformed. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think he needs to be consistent in the books. And I think the whole thing is that he needs that sort of the younger brother element. And I know that obviously the whole thing is for kids in a sense, but I don't want them to shy away from the fact that Tyson was abused. He has the scars on his back and all these sort of things and the abuse element. And I don't want them to shy away from that because I know Disney is good at showing the dramatic things. Like Atlantis: The Lost Empire is one of my favorite animated Disney films, and like they kill so many people die in that film. We have straight up murder. We have a suicide. We have like everything. It's insane. But they didn't market it at all really because of the amount of change and sort of violence in a sense. So I don't want them to purify the story, so we don't have the fact that Percy clearly has basically like PTSD, and Annabeth is from a sort of traumatic background. Luke himself is from a traumatic background. Tyson was abused, and all these sort of things. They need to not undo that, if that makes sense. So I think if I was on the writing team, like I wouldn't bring so much attention to it so that it is dark, but I wouldn't shy away from it. And I think the thing that I really want to bring up, and this is something that I bring up all the time on my podcast, is that Percy 100% is a character with signs of PTSD. And I think the only unfortunate thing that I do have the books is that the leaning into the fact that he does have PTSD never really happens. It's just kind of there, and it's never really confronted. So I think mental health is something that wouldn't, not necessarily discussed, but needs to be addressed in the series, especially in terms of like Percy basically having PTSD, Annabeth being from pretty much an abusive household. These things need to be addressed, not necessarily in the fact that like there needs to be like a therapist at the camp, but have them talk about it and have them understand that these things weren't okay. To kind of it not necessarily be like a PSA to the audience, but sort of be a PSA. I'm trying to think of a good example of a TV series that's done that. I want to say Andy Mack is one. They don't do it too often, and ironically, it is actually a Disney Channel series as well. But they were the first Disney Channel series to have a gay character, a young gay character as well. They had Cyrus, who was in the show, who was a 13-year-old boy who comes out in, I think it's the first season. And the way in which they do it is so well done. Because the way in which he speaks is that he says he doesn't necessarily come out in a sense, but Buffy, his friend, questions him saying, "Oh, do you like Andy?" And he shakes his head, and she goes, "You like Jonah?" And he nods, clearly terrified. And she went, "That I can't even remember what she said, but basically the whole moment is so tender and soft." And he responds with, I feel weird saying that. And her initial response is, "Cyrus, you've always been weird. This doesn't make you any different." And that is sort of the PSA moment of, yeah, you are gay, but that doesn't change who you are. You are still you. And it's a really subtle PSA moment, which I think Percy Jackson would be great to do. Sort of like, you know, how the whole dyslexia and ADHD thing, which again, I love that was made to be a positive in this series of, yeah, demigods have dyslexia and ADHD because it helps them be better demigods and protect themselves. I love that. What I think they need to do is work on the mental health side of things, because that is important in this series in the sense that it's very clearly there but not touched on. So the PTSD element for Percy, when he has those night terrors about Mrs. Dodds, have him kind of confront that a little bit in terms of like his have him kind of not have anxiety, but show the signs of anxiety, and maybe even have him kind of combat it in a way. In that, so like when I have an anxiety attack, for example, the things that I do is that I will put a hand on my chest, usually two sometimes, to kind of put pressure on my chest a little bit, and I will breathe into my hands, just slow down my breathing to help me calm down. So showing something like that, showing someone dealing with an anxiety attack, dealing with PTSD related dreams, to show that, yeah, these things happen, these things are a struggle, and it is important to be aware that these things happen. the mental health side will be relatable to most teens. 100%. And that is why I really want it to not have like a deep focus, but have it be important to the series, because we've got so many terrible shows that go about portraying. I've just realized I look really creepy because my room has just gone completely dark. But there are so many shows that show how to show mental health, but in such a bad way that it doesn't do anything to help benefit people in understanding mental health, which is kind of what I want Percy Jackson to be able to do, is to help people understand mental health through these characters who are children dealing with mental health, because it's a thing. It's a thing now. It's well known that like children can have mental health illnesses from young ages. I had anxiety from the age of 9/10. Not that we knew it was anxiety until I was about 14 years old, but I had severe anxiety. And Percy 100% has that himself. So maybe even having the fact that he has anxiety be well known. So maybe even have Sally help him through an anxiety attack after he wakes up from a nightmare when they're at the cabin or something like that. Just something to address it. And that's kind of what all I want, really, is an addressing of mental health. We need that stuff in the series. It'd be really beneficial to the world. And it also just the very kind of thing Riordan would do. Like, he's been normalizing the stigmatization for ages. Exactly. And that's why I think it's not even something to add to the series. It's something just to heighten a little bit, to show this normalization of, yes, people can have anxiety attacks. People can have nervous behaviors. People can have behavioral issues relating to trauma, like Annabeth, like what I talked about in my Everybody Hates Annabeth video. Annabeth is a traumatized child. And so on the occasions that she does act out, it is based in that trauma that she's never been able to deal with. And things like that, I think, are just incredibly important, because it not only will it add so much depth, but it will help kids realize that these things about them are normal, and it make them feel like a hero to themselves, that they could see Percy have an anxiety attack and him being able to deal with it and being able to understand what's happening, being able to calm himself down. And then later on, they see him win a fight and they see him be a hero. And they realize, yeah, I have anxiety. I have these anxiety attacks, but I can still be my own hero. And I think that's the most important thing. Exactly, yes, because they are heroes. And that's what I've just given myself goosebumps. What the hell? But, okay, hold on. Someone has got an idea in the chat. Tash, go ahead. I'm intrigued. His first anxiety attack is in front of Dionysus and he helps. That is an interesting idea. I'm not opposed to it. I think I would prefer if Sally was maybe the first person just to develop Sally a little bit more as a character. But with Dionysus, that would be interesting as well, with him being a hero who probably has his own share of not secondhand PTSD, that's not a thing, his own PTSD from the past. Same with Chiron, yeah, like what AC Magic says. I think it'd be, hold on, I'm going to turn the light on because it's starting to annoy me now. Oh, there we go. Oh, cool. You can see me. May turn this off. Hold on. Oh, I can see again. Okay. I just realized I had a cup of tea. And I haven't drunk a single bit. And it's gone cold, so now I'm upset. But I think there's just so many things that can be done with this series, which again is why I really, really want to write for it. Just because I have so many ideas of what can be done. Yeah. No, that makes sense as well. Like with him having that connection to being able to drive people mad and being able to undo it, which is what happens with the character who currently can't be named because of people who haven't read the full series yet in the chat. And being able to sort of undo that madness him being able to help demigods with mental health issues and being able to support them, not necessarily to take it away, because that defeats the whole purpose of being able to show and understand mental health illnesses, but to have him in a way be able to support them. Imagine just seeing him after one of the battles that have left many demigod kids dead. And we just see, again, with the whole background, it's seeing it in the background thing with me. We just see Chiron or Dionysus with a demigod kid who's clearly traumatized by what they've seen, and just seeing them talk to this kid, supporting them with their words, not necessarily taking away that pain and that trauma that they've gone through, because that doesn't happen in the real world. And that's the important thing here. We can't undo what does happen in the real world, but just to have them support this kid and just talk to them. And in our minds, we can picture this conversation of, I understand what you're going through. I understand what you are experiencing. You can let it out. Cry, scream, get angry. Let it out. Don't bottle it up. Or something. Or even have him have that conversation with Percy. I think I change it. Have this conversation with Percy of Dionysus saying to him, maybe in the last Olympian, when we have that moment between them, of Dionysus saying, I know you're angry. I know you're upset. I know you want to destroy the world for what is happening. And that anger and that pain, it's justified. But use it in a way that's going to help you instead of hurt others. Because that's not going to make you feel better at the end of the day, hurting someone else. Have that sort of PSA moment. I don't know where I was going with that because I can't think of the dialogue at the moment, but just a moment like that. And I'm just seeing in the chat people talking about, I think Pollux would be a similar type of hero, losing cat. Oh, I won't say that. And due to also being Dionysus' son. Yes, exactly. Dionysus' children. That is a really important thing as well. There are just so many moments with it. What if he tries to have this conversation with Luke, but it backfires? Possibly. I don't know if we could find that to put into the conversation. Maybe have him mention that he tried, or Chiron tried at least. Because I don't know if Dionysus would. I think it'd be more interesting if Dionysus himself develops as that character, like we see in the book, to the point that he is helping demigods in the books, eventually just helping them through their trauma. But I don't know, it's an interesting thought for sure. But I think it's just something that just would be really interesting, is getting that character development for Dionysus by also including this mental health element of him helping these kids through mental health because of his connection to that side with his godly power of being able to not undo in this sense, but help them understand, like being a therapist in a way, by helping them talk out what's going on, help them not understand what happened, but accept what happened, because you can't understand what they're going through. You can just accept what has happened. I think what happened after. Yeah. Dionysus might feel slight guilt, realize I'm becoming the hero I hate. And so, yeah. No, I totally agree with that as well. Like, what happens with Luke, in a way, we don't see it until later on, that we realize that Dionysus and Chiron, the both of them, blame themselves in a sense. I think it'd be really interesting. AC Magic says, I don't know why, but I just envision the unclaimed Morpheus kids being in a big group, all sleeping together, and everyone around them are much more relaxed than the other demigods further away. Interesting. I'm trying to remember what the god Morpheus. No, I can't remember who that god is. But it would be interesting just to kind of get these different god of sleep. Oh yeah, okay. I felt like it was that, but then I was like, oh, I don't want to say it in case I'm wrong. I've just realised I was meant to keep myself hydrated. Whoops. Well, we're going on for nearly an hour here, guys. Jeez. I hope you guys have been enjoying this, considering I've just been ranting for about an hour. I like in the Titan's Curse when Mr. Day saves Percy and says his name right. I like that too. It shows his developing of character, which is Titan's Curse would actually be a good time to introduce Dionysus' different side of himself, because that's the first time that we experience a close personal death in the series. So to have Dionysus have that moment with Percy, even if just a small one in that moment, I think would be really beneficial. I think it's just the thing. So this is basically, these are the reasons why I need to become a writer for the Percy Jackson live action series on Disney+. The different points of views that I will write for the series, including Lucas Stellan, Annabeth Chase, and even a little bit of Talia Grace and Bianca D'Angelo, because everyone hates Bianca because of her decision in terms of Nico, which I think is ridiculous. So showing her perspective, I think, will be interesting to help people understand her reasons more than anything, as well as Nico's actions later on, because people are going to hate me for saying this, but I don't enjoy Nico's character that much because of his actions. So maybe seeing his reasons from his perspective, it could change my opinion, for example, and change others who may feel that way. But also, just I think there are really interesting characters that we can see different perspectives on, not completely like changing from moving away from Percy's perspective, but just seeing through their eyes briefly of how they feel and what they've experienced would be really interesting and beneficial to us as an audience. But also, getting these foreshadowing moments in the background is another big thing that I would bring to the Percy Jackson live action, because foreshadowing for everything that's coming on, like the dagger, like the spy, like Ethan maybe as well, and so the people that we find out later who turn to the other side, hints of them and what leads up to them changing sides would be really interesting. And then also the different messages that the series itself should bring. The main one for me being that of mental health awareness, because that is a big part of the series that, while it's there, I think needs to be focused on a lot more. And that is why I should be hired to be a writer, or at least part of the writing team for the Percy Jackson live action on Disney+. I've just been ignoring the chat, and I apologize now. It's decided I'm reading the series again. Do it. And listen to my podcast, The Best Damn Camp, if you aren't already, because that's where I'm doing a read-along and analysis of the series. I'd like them to go into the history of the Oracle more. Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree. Especially with Rachel's entrance and with the reveal about Luke's mum. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the Oracle is a really interesting character that doesn't really have much of a character until Rachel. So it'd be interesting to kind of get a bit more from that. I wonder what happened to the demigods that side of the Kronos. That is a good point. So it'd be good to kind of get an idea of that in the sort of final season of what happens to them after the battle and stuff. Oh yeah, no, Zeus probably. I don't know actually, because I felt that would be the redundant side of the gods punishing them because they were frustrated at them. It just proves to all other demigods that they were right. So I don't know if Zeus would have dealt with anything. Oh, I quite like that. The whole understanding Jason's story before the Lost Hero. That's something I did a video about rewriting the Lost Hero. And I think that's the thing that we need to get more of Jason's story. So I think if we get that hinted at a little bit in Percy Jackson itself and get an idea of what was happening at the other camp, it could help to bring more interest to his character in that follow-up series. Where can I find your podcast? My podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audio Boom, and Stitcher as well. But Spotify and Apple Podcasts are like the easier ones to find. Just search the best. Hold on, I'll put it in the chat so you guys can find it. Best. Oh God, damn camp podcast. There we go. I don't know if I can I pin this? Nope, I can't pin. I don't know how to do that. we definitely need hints for Heroes of Olympus. Again, may not necessarily get it depending on how well revenue-wise Percy Jackson does, but getting those hints in initially would be an interesting way to go. But yeah, this has been an hour's worth of Percy Jackson live action. I keep hitting my desk, which is making everything shake. Oh, AC Magic. Yes, I like that. I like that very much. I had this idea. I don't know if, I think it was on Twitter somewhere actually. Someone posted this idea of the final episode sort of fade into credits and then like a post-credit scene of the bus in Heroes of Olympus where we start the 3 people on the bus and it's Jason, Piper and Leo, and then we cut to black, something like that. Yeah. Oh, I like that as well, Tash. But yeah, I like I was just finishing up and then you guys got me interested again. This has been a lot of fun actually to talk this out. Like I'm the only person I've got a few friends who know the Percy Jackson series and are interested in it, and also people on Discord servers that I'm involved with as well. This has been fun to be able to talk about this and all these things that I really wanted. What about post credits with Magnus? I don't think that would come until after Heroes of Olympus because Magnus Chase is set after Heroes of Olympus. But yeah, maybe when like Heroes of Olympus ends, there'll be hints for Magnus or something. I don't know. Although Kane Chronicles technically also comes before Magnus Chase, so who knows? Guys, stop chatting. I'm trying to end this because I've been here for an hour. Although admittedly our conversations have been amazing, so I could technically stay for longer, but I feel I should go because oh my gosh, can they change the timeline a little bit? No, I don't think they can because of certain things that happen in Magnus Chase are happening in Trials of Apollo, and there are some things that happen in Trials of Apollo that definitely can't happen until after Heroes of Olympus. Listen to Simon, we can't change the timeline. Yeah, no, unfortunately Magnus Chase would not be able to come before Kane Chronicles or at the same time as Heroes of Olympus. We can have mentions of a cousin in Boston, definitely, to hint towards that in future. Oh dear, my desk. Ugh, my desk is so wobbly. Every time I put my elbows on this, it just shakes. Yeah, that's what I mean, Elizabeth. They happen at the same time. Everything that kind of goes together in that moment. I've just realized I've been talking, but I don't know if you guys have been able to hear me all right this whole time, right? I assume so because people have been responding to what I've been saying, but I just want to double check actually now. And then I will end it. That was a really weird laugh. Oh my goodness. Okay, so people just carry on talking about Magnus Chase and Trials of Apollo. But yeah, that's the reason why they can't happen at the same time. All the stuff that happens in Trials of Apollo. Do not spoil, and guys, please don't spoil in the chat because I know there are quite a lot of people on my channel who haven't gotten to Trials of Apollo yet. I've done videos that technically spoil, but I try not to put it in the titles to spoil what's happened. And of course, for anyone here who hasn't checked out the videos on my channel, I've got an entire playlist dedicated to the Riordanverse theory. So go check those out after this live. Subscribe to my channel as well if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell for new videos every Sunday. I don't know if you guys are Avatar The Last Airbender fans, but my channel is also dedicated to Avatar The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, the sequel series. I know I'm finishing up here. You guys are still talking, and I love that you guys are still invested in this. I would stay longer if I can, but for those who aren't following me on Instagram and Twitter, which you guys should, a dose of Fran on Twitter, a healthy dose of Fran on Instagram, I am hopefully getting published later this year with a short story, and I need to go do editing. AC Magic, yes, weekly. I don't know about a weekly live I could possibly do, but I do have videos out every single Sunday. Never miss a week, so stick around for that. But if you guys are, if these lives, oh, hold on, wait. So many things are happening in the chat. I don't know what's going on. We will end when the glass is empty too. Oh gosh, guys. I'm just going to drink my cold tea. Let's just enjoy. Oh God, no, don't drink cold tea. That was a bad idea. I'm just shouting all my stuff out to you guys. Yeah, so people in the chat who haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, check out my previous Percy Jackson videos, check out my Avatar videos. If you enjoy Avatar, follow me on my social media. It will be linked in this video after I've finished it all up. Oh God, don't make me do it because it tastes so gross. I'm going to nuke it in the microwave in a bit because it's nasty. I'm British. I love my tea, but I cannot drink. I was about to drink it again. Why was I going to drink it again? Oh my goodness. It's not even that late. Thanks, Albert. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Oh, actually, just because I was just going to show, I'll show you guys my tattoos. You guys will love them. We've got Kane Chronicles. What? We got SPQR. Rome. Hey, King Canuck. Nice. We got Poseidon right here. We got Magnus Chase here. We got Because Hope Survives at Best at the Hearth from thank you, man. This last the quote to do with Hestia and Hope from The Last Olympian. Even strength has to bow down to weakness sometimes. The quote from the first book here. We got Artemis. We got the symbol for the Percy Jackson series. We got Athena here. We got the rune of Frey here. I got a bunch of tattoos for Percy Jackson. I was just stretching and I saw them. Thank you. I'm getting loads more Percy Jackson tattoos in future as well. I've got like Avatar ones as well. I could never convince myself to get tattoos. Those are very clean. Oh, Keanu Reeves Hades. I may consider it, my man. I may consider it. Right, okay. Yeah, hashtag dedication, man. Seriously. These tattoos, because I don't know how old you guys are, I won't recommend getting tattoos, but I will say they're not as painful as you would think. But if you are considering a tattoo, best thing to do is to save it as like your phone background, basically. So you're seeing it every single day. Do that for about a month or two. If you haven't gotten sick of the image, probably will be okay with getting it tattooed on your body. People talking about fan casts now. Guys, I was going to leave, but now I'm invested again. But I want to warm up my cup of tea. That's true. Keanu Reeves would be a really interesting Hades. Same with what was it? There was a post that someone did of Keanu Reeves and Kylie Minogue as Hades and Persephone. Well, wait. You only want me to do it now so you guys can keep chatting. I'm sorry. I do have to go. Hopefully, if this is engaging enough, and if you go tell your friends that I'm a Percy Jackson YouTuber and to come and subscribe and hit the notification bell for me, because it'd be cool to get to 800 subscribers by end of May, shall we say? And then 1K by the summer. You know, help. Yeah. I see you guys. If you guys help me do that and let all your friends know, maybe I'll do weekly lives every so often. We shall see. But for now, like I said, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell your friends, check me out on social media. All of that will be linked when I finish this. Use the mist quick. Nice. Check out my podcast, The Best Damn Camp. Damn with only the M, no N, because I don't swear. What are you talking about? Check out my Percy Jackson videos here on this channel. And yeah. Come on, guys. I will do it. If you get me subscribers, if you get me my followers, if you help me out, I will do more lives and I will do more Percy Jackson Live related content. I'm here for you. You are here for me. Here for me. We can do this. We will build. What's my Instagram? It is a healthy dose of Fran, same as this channel name. And Twitter is a dose of Fran, because a healthy dose of Fran was too long. I will put it all linked in the description box when I finish this live, so it should hopefully be down there after this. I was ending. That's what I was doing. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining this live and joining my channel and supporting me. I truly, truly appreciate every single last one of you, especially those who are subscribers, because you're subscribed. You like my content enough to subscribe. It's amazing. But until then, and until next time when I may be doing a live, if you're here still, I will see you guys next time. Now I've got to figure out how to end this live. Yeah, no, let me end.